Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're not just going to solve an economics problem. Oh no, we're going to break down exactly how to deliver a perfect, high-scoring answer from the first calculation all the way to the final presentation.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off by really decoding the problem itself. Then we'll make sure we've got the core theory down cold. After that, we'll walk through all the math, step by step, before, and this is key, diving into the strategy for writing an answer that really gets you those top marks.
All right, let's get right to it. Here's the question, straight out of a past exam. You know, the very first step to a killer answer is always understanding exactly what's being asked of you.
Okay, this is a classic, a real textbook example. It's designed to test one main thing. Can you figure out how a government action, in this case a tax, messes with a monopolist's decisions? It's a workout for both your math skills and your economic brain.
Now hold on, before we even think about plugging in numbers, let's just pause and really nail down the core economic idea that's running this whole show. If you get this part right, trust me, the math becomes a piece of cake.
So here's the absolute bottom line. Any firm, and I mean especially a monopolist who basically controls the market, has one single goal driving everything it does, making the most profit possible. It's going to pick the exact level of output to make that happen.
And here it is. This little equation is the golden key. It unlocks the entire problem. See, a monopolist will keep making stuff as long as the money from one more unit, that's your marginal revenue, is more than what it costs to make that unit, your marginal cost. The sweet spot, that perfect profit maximizing quantity, is right where those two things are equal.
You know, if you really want to build a rock-solid foundation here, Chapter 15 of Mankiw's Principles of Economics is your best friend. Seriously, it breaks down this whole process, how monopolists decide what to make and what to charge, and it gets right into how governments try to step in with things like taxes.
Okay, theory's covered. Now for the fun part. It's time to actually apply it and crunch the numbers, step by step. We're going to look at the world before the tax and then see what happens after. First up, we need a baseline, right? We have to find the monopolist's original happy place, its profit-maximizing price and quantity, before the government gets involved. And that means finding our MR and our MC and setting them equal.
So what's really cool here is this little journey from demand to marginal revenue. Your total revenue is just price times quantity. Simple enough. But to get the marginal revenue, the extra cash from the very next unit, we just take the derivative of that total revenue function.
Next, we need our marginal cost. We just take the derivative of the total cost function, and that gives us a nice simple 10. And now for the main event. We use our golden rule. Set MR equal to MC. A little bit of algebra later, boom, we solve for Q and get our starting quantity of 11.875 units.
And to find our pre-tax price, easy. We take that quantity, 11.875, and we just plug it right back into that original demand equation. And that tells us the monopolist was charging a price of 105.
Okay, baseline established. We know where we started. Now, let's introduce that 10 rupee per unit tax and see how it shakes things up for our monopolist. The process is exactly the same, but one of our key numbers has just changed.
So, this is the crucial part. You've got to understand where the tax hits. A per-unit tax is a variable cost. It makes every single unit more expensive to produce. So we add 10Q to our cost function. And the new marginal cost? Well, the derivative of this new function is now 20.
So we just run the play again. We set our original marginal revenue equal to our new marginal cost of 20. We solve for the new quantity, which we'll call Q prime, and we get 11.25. Plug that number back into the demand curve, and we get a new, higher price of 110.
And this table just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? The tax made the monopolist cut back production from about 11.9 units down to 11.25. And to keep profits maxed out with these new costs, they had to jack up the price for consumers from 105 all the way to 110. Look, getting the right numbers is fantastic. But in an exam, that's literally only half the battle. We need to talk about how you structure and present your answer so you're not just correct, you're communicating like an expert. That's how you get maximum marks. Remember, the examiner can't read your mind. You have to show them your logic. So always start with the core principle, MR equals MC. Show your work step by step for both before and after the tax. A summary table like the one we saw is gold for clarity. And always wrap it up with a simple sentence that says what happened in plain English. So why do I keep going on about presentation and structure? Why does it matter so much? Well, let's pull back the curtain for a second and see how an answer like this actually gets graded.
Okay, look at this. Of course, the math is huge. That's half your points right there. But check out the other half. A full 30% comes from your economic explanation, saying the MR equals MC rule, explaining why the tax hits the marginal cost. And the last 20%, that's for structure and clarity. It just goes to show you, a messy answer, even with the right numbers, is going to lose a ton of marks.
So now that you've seen a complete breakdown of this problem, you are totally ready to build on this. Here's how you can go deeper and get ready for any curveball they might throw at you next time.
The absolute key, you guys, is practice. Start asking what if. What happens if it's a lump sum tax instead of a per unit tax? I'll give you a hint, it doesn't touch the marginal cost. Or how would things change if the demand was way more elastic? Working through these kinds of variations is how you build true mastery.
Now let's just end with this thought. We've done the mechanics. We've seen it plain as day. The tax makes quantity fall and the price rise. Sure, the government gets some revenue, but the people buying the product are paying more for less. The math is simple, but the policy question? That's way more complicated. It's a huge question for any economist and something worth thinking about.